beginning of winter, I was like, why is this sheet?
How are you?
Hi, Daphne. How are you? Jack,
All right.
sorry.
She doesn't.
Oh,
But now she might come.
oh.
Would you be first?
Doing all right?
Here we go again. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So are
Hey, Julie.
How you doing?
Good. Heard lunch was went real well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, you know, in some respects, it's a little bit preachy, but still. I don't have it either.
Do schools do individual licensing agreements
No,
with
don't start that.
vendors? Now, occasionally one slips by, but yeah, they need to be approved and we protect them.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Ann. How are you? Oh, good. You've been
Yeah, typically, they've been, if it's Southside Sox, Southside's done an agreement with whatever athletic store sells it and receives some money from that.
Okay, now, who wants to share in the fun?
Oh, no, come on, you wanna read all that?
No. All the way up to K? I don't think so.
Oh, my goodness.
Long grain rice, red lentils,
Get your vice president.
Why don't
I
you
mean,
take-
the secretary.
with some,
Secretary needs to work.
Why don't you take the Park Center case managers?
All right, I'll do that.
Okay.
So is he doing dishes too?
both ways. They have to, we call flip the dishes.
Uh-huh.
Aye. And here, Steve, you want to take H, the grant application for
Sure.
non-English speaking?
You know, it seems like we could put some of these together. Could we?
All the grant applications? Well, there's
The
only
grant
two.
applications and the
There's only
project
two.
architect.
It also looks like somebody else.
Okay.
She's in charge, she can do whatever she
Archie and
wants.
Veronica,
Yeah.
is it?
But I need,
It's a familiar
It's not,
look
there it is. There you go.
somewhere.
because I used to belong to the board.
Do they have to be in your district, or no?
Yeah. These are just a couple more weeks.
They don't have to be in your district?
No, no, just in the school.
Get down.
Signed it, please.
And
She gave you something I wouldn't have given you that?
would you like,
just doesn't go, she
Explains stuff to me that
We'll be together Wednesday.
and I'm going,
She doesn't make me good.
I already gave that to Becky.
2 minutes, Julie.
2 minutes, 2-minute warning.
I think so, I'm not sure.
G,
Okay.
grant application Title III,
On the front page,
or
I'll do that.
you want to take B, the Schilling Legacy Award?
Sure, I'll do that.
I don't know if you can sign.
No, you tell me.
I better find it, huh?
17 days.
But ask him if I can.
Ten, 9, 8, 7. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's August 8th meeting of the Fort Wayne Community School Board of Trustees. We will begin every meeting, as we have, with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Steve, would you like to begin our roll call?
I will, thank you. Good evening, my name is Steve Corona, representing the 5th District.
And I'm Becky Hill from the 3rd District.
I'm Ann Duff, representing the district at large.
Jordan Lebemoff, the 4th District.
And I'm Julie Hollingsworth from District 1, and the Vice President of the Board, Mr. Giaquina and Ms. Yale are away on business, so we have a small but select group tonight. To my far left is Barb Trout. She's the clerk of the board and keeps us organized, which is a tough job. And next to her is our superintendent, Dr. Wendy Robinson. Good evening.
Good evening.
We will begin with awards and recognitions. And Jordan is going to take the Arch's annual Archie Awards. Take it away, Jordan.
Look, this is a happy one for me because years ago, when I first came to Fort Wayne, I was appointed to be a Board of Trustee member of the Arch program. And I learned from that there's a dedication that that group gives to the Fort Wayne community, that they believe in our heritage and they believe in our future. And they believe that there's connection between maintaining our heritage and our architectural components of where we've been and bringing them back to life and not letting them die away. So with that being said, it's recommended that the board recognize the Fort Wayne Community Schools Facility Department for winning Archie Awards for rehabilitation work done at Harrison Hill Elementary School and Irwin Elementary. Arch, Fort Wayne's premier organization for historic preservation, recognizes outstanding historic preservation undertakings annually with the Archie Awards. Awards are based on work largely visible from the public right-of-ways and must meet other criteria, including following the U.S. Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And Darren, I think that's what your group is doing fantastically. Nominations are evaluated by the Arch Preservation Committee and approved by the Arch Board of Directors. Fort Wayne Community Schools won the Institutional Rehabilitation Award not just in 2015 for Harrison Hill, but again in 2016 for Irwin. Please come forward when your name is read so we may congratulate you. Zachary Evans, Coordinator of Capital Projects. Heather Krebs, Coordinator of Program Controls. Darren Hess, Director of Facilities. Sean Smiley, Principal at Harrison Hill, and Ingrid Ledru Martin, Principal of Irwin. I applaud you guys.
Thank you, Jordan.
That's a big deal, guys. 2 years in a row.
That's cool. And if anyone has not had the opportunity to actually see for themselves Harrison Hill or Irwin, I believe, am I correct? You can go on the Repair FWCS website, and there are probably before and after pictures, certainly after pictures of the wonderful work that's been done. So thank you. And next, Anne is going to take the Susan Schilling Legacy Award for Outstanding Leadership in Education to one of our colleagues.
It is recommended that the board recognize Liz Bryan for winning the Susan Schilling Legacy Award. The Susan Schilling Legacy Award was created in 2009 to honor Susan Schilling, former New Tech CEO. It recognizes entrepreneurs in education who demonstrate leadership and contribute to the innovation and sustainability of the New Tech network of nearly 200 schools in the United States and Australia. Liz Bryan, former director of New Tech Academy at Wayne High School, was recognized with this award at the New Tech Network annual conference, where her dedication, ability to innovate, and the environment she was created to support student success and ensure that every student has the skills to succeed at college and career was cited. Please come forward when your name is read so we may congratulate you. Liz Bryan, Manager of Personalized Education. John Hauser, Principal of Wayne High School. And Faye Williams-Robbins, Chief Officer of Family and Community Engagement.
Congratulations, Liz. And you may have noted Liz is giving up her baby, the New Tech Academy that you led for 5 years? 8 years? Wow, is it that? It's been going on that long? Okay, the planning and the implementation. Okay. Congratulations. Now we move to our consent agenda, and these are items that come to us every meeting. They include the minutes from the meeting that was held July 25th, vouchers and payroll for the period ending August 8th, and those vouchers are kept on file for 7 years if anyone has some time to kill or is interested in viewing those. And then the personnel report. And Dr. Robinson, was there anything on the personnel report, anyone you wanted to highlight?
Just a couple things, please. Want me to do it now?
What's that?
Want me to do it now, or can wait?
Okay, we'll go ahead and, anyone want to take any of these items out of the, okay.
I
So,
can move approval of the items within the consent agenda.
Thank you,
Madam
Steve.
Chair.
Second.
thank you, Jordan and Becky. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Dr. Robinson?
Someone who's not on the personnel report tonight, but I just wanted to mention Ann Barnes-Smith, who has been with us for 37 years, has retired from the district and has taken another position similar, not another school district, but still working with the children that she loves. Ann didn't want a lot of fuss, because normally we try to have a reception and honor someone who's given her life to the district, but just didn't want her to walk away without us publicly thanking her for the dedication she had to, first of all, the children in this district, but also the adults. And Ann's been at every level, Glenwood, Holland, Miami, Wayne, starting out as a teacher at Southside. So, Ann, if you're listening, which I doubt, but anyone listening who knows Ann, tell her that we publicly thanked her for her years of dedication to our children. The other two are really brief announcements. I think I spoke too soon when I said we had all of our administrative positions filled very early. We've had some shifting, so Dave Weber will be moving from Glenwood Park to Arlington as principal. I know he's over there already. Get is still in the process of working to get a permanent principal at Glenwood. We do have an assistant there, but we're also going to have Stephanie Borney, who does not understand how to retire either, go over and lend some support and assistance. So we're in good shape. We'll take our time to make sure that we find a principal worthy of being in one of our elementary schools. Just wanted to highlight those things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have no old business on the agenda, so that brings us to new business. And first is the appointment of architects for the 2017 PPI projects. It's recommended that the board approve the appointment of project architects and engineers for each of the following 2017 projects. General building systems is Kelty Tappy Design. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is Primary Engineering. Roof replacement is Martin Riley. And traffic and site is MSKTD and Associates for a total of $2.1 million estimated from the Capital Projects Fund, correct? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Becky.
Second.
Thanks, Jordan. Any questions? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we move to the appointment of project architects for the referendum construction project. And the project will be the renovation of Nebraska. And that architect is MSKTD, estimated construction budget of $3.2 million. Indiana law requires that projects over $100,000 make use of a registered architect or a professional engineer for developing plans and specifications. Project architects and engineers need to be appointed now to allow sufficient time for planning and bidding of the project to ensure completion during the summer of 2017. And Director of Facilities, Darren Hess, is available for any questions. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Becky and Steve. Any questions?
I did have one question.
Okay.
That is, Darren, at a later time, following the appointment of these architects and engineers, does the board then approve the payment of fees to these business firms?
This approves the appointment with their compensation contract when they are, with their vouchers later on, you're approving their payments as they go.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that we will be, first of all, we're hiring an architect because it takes a long time to even start talking about what it is you want to do. But we intend to, within the next month, have conversations with the board about the art of the possible. So Faye is leading us through a process beginning next week. Faye and Liz will be involved in that process too, because we're looking at K-12, what we're trying to do. So what we'll want to do before we get into the details of this project, have that fuller board workshop to talk about options and some things we want to look at. Follow closely by having that conversation within the Nebraska neighborhood. So it's not that we've forgotten that that's a step we need to take, just need to get a little further down the road before we do that.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nope. Now we have emergency masonry portico repair at Southside High School. It's recommended that the board declare the following project to be of an emergency nature and allocate funds from the emergency account within the Capital Projects Fund. And that's for repairs to the Southside High School portico not to exceed $10,500. The limestone structural lintel unit that supports the stone masonry above the entrance at door 1 has cracked and could lead to failure of the structure. Emergency repairs include temporary shoring of the limestone lintel and necessary repairs to stabilize the structure. All work is being completed on a time and materials basis once the permanent repair plan has been determined. Do we have a motion and
So moved.
Second.
thanks, Jordan and Steve. Any questions? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, now we have the, what is that? 20-page, looks like he'll be here for a while. The resolution regarding the Fort Wayne Community School Building Corporation. It will be recommended that the board pass a resolution to reapprove matters related to the Fort Wayne Community School Building Corporation, including reapproving its articles of incorporation and code of bylaws and the reappointment of its directors. Furthermore, it is recommended that the board approve the First Amendment to the master lease and set the public hearing on the First Amendment to the master lease for September 12, 2016. So basically, we're going through what we did before for Phase 1. Now we're doing the same thing for Phase 2. These approvals are required to facilitate financing of the 2016 Fort Wayne Community School Building Basic Renewal, Restoration, and Safety Project approved by the voters on May 3rd, 2016. Thank you again. Prior to this meeting, the Board of Directors of the Fort Wayne Community School Building Corporation approved the form of First Amendment to Master Lease and authorized the execution of the First Amendment to Master Lease. The Board of Directors of the Fort Wayne Community Schools Building Corporation and the School Board of Trustees will convene again on September 12th to take further action, including approval to issue bonds. The School Board of Trustees will also conduct a public hearing on the First Amendment to the Master Lease and the appropriation of the bond proceeds for the 2016 referendum project at that time. Chief Financial Officer Kathy Friend is here to read all 20 pages and answer any questions, correct?
I have help.
So do we have a motion and second? Thank you, Becky.
Second.
Thanks, Ann. I have one question, and I think I should know this, but remind me, who's on the board of directors for the building corporation?
Steve Pekarsky.
Steve, I thought so.
Sharon McCauley, Benny Lewis, Pamela Martin Diaz, and Stephen Sowers.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
Is there a quick explanation as to what we're doing here and whether there is any difference in the language from the first time we went through this with repair part 1, or is this?
Well, I'm sure Jeff Quackenbush could do a better job at explaining that than I could. Since he came all this way, I'll ask him to come to the microphone.
Thank you, Kathy. Dr. Robinson, members of the board, Madam President, or Vice President. This is exactly the same set of documents that we had for repair phase one. The only difference being that the lease rental payments in this one are different, as were advertised back in May when we had the referendum, than they were for the 119 million. This is approximately 129 million of bonds, so the lease rental payments are different and the term is a little different. But as far as the property, the processes that you will be going through, they will be identical to the ones that we did for repair phase one.
And why does this state require this separate corporation? I know those individuals that were just named met this afternoon prior to this meeting.
Sure. The Indiana Constitution was established back in 1850, and it limited the amount of borrowing that local governments can do to fund capital improvements. The state of Indiana was completely prohibited from borrowing money to fund capital improvements. That seemed like a good idea in 1850, but by 1851, they decided that wasn't a good idea. And yet they didn't want to go about changing the Constitution. So some lawyers got together. I wasn't around. I don't think Rod was around at that time yet. But so they got together and decided that just like your service contracts and your utility payments are not debt under that constitutional limitation or prohibition, a lease structure with a building corporation is not treated as debt. So about 95% of the local governmental improvement projects across the state of Indiana are funded in this method, and 100% of the state of Indiana capital improvement projects for penitentiaries, Lucas Oil Stadium, things up here, toll roads are funded through a lease structure like this.
There are minutes of their meetings. There are minutes taken at the meetings?
Yes, ma'am. And those are approved at each of their meetings, and we actually had someone, they're subject to the open door law, just as the school corporation is for school board meetings, and we actually had a member from the press there this afternoon at that meeting.
Okay. And they have another one on the 12th, right?
Yes, at 5:30 in the evening, we will be having that, or 5 o'clock, I think it is when we're having that meeting. And anyone from the public is welcome to attend that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the history lesson.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
It's interesting. Lawyers can always find a way around things, can't they? Okay.
Do you need my telephone number?
I might. Okay, so all in favor of approving the passage of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, now we have the recommendation that the board approve the closure of Nebraska Elementary School. And, that's something that Dr. Robinson has already, and we have discussed here before. This, I guess, requires some official notice. So after many parent, staff, community, and board discussions, it was determined that in order to be fiscally responsible and maximize resources in the best interest of our students, Nebraska Elementary School should close at the end of the 2015-16 school year. Nebraska ended the year with 136 students in grades K through 4. And that's correct?
The fifth graders move on naturally.
But they were there when the school year ended, weren't they?
Right. So it's,
This is just talking about reassignment, though.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
it was worded
Okay.
strangely, but.
In grades K through 4 that were reassigned or applied, accepted to other schools, with the majority, 96 of them, attending Washington Elementary School this coming school year. The Nebraska building will be renovated during the 2016-2017 school year and be used for some sort of an alternative program beginning in 2017-2018. As Dr. Robinson mentioned, we'll have those discussions. Do we have a motion to approve in a second?
So moved.
Thanks, Becky and Steve. Any questions? All those,
I just want to ask, review for me what happened at the end of the year between those two schools. I know there's been a lot of preparation.
Magic. The two principals involved, Jason Balsley, first of all, was at Nebraska, and anybody connected with education knows the pain that goes into closing a school, just the emotional part. So we spent quite a bit of time, and John Key was the director responsible, but obviously Get was there, and I was there when needed. We took care of the staff, and we took care of the students. We had separate processes. Most of the staff has been relocated to different jobs within the district if they chose to do that. The teachers are now, I think 4 of the 5 Get went to Washington. The perfect magic was the reception the Nebraska teachers received from the Washington teachers, the reception the Nebraska students received from the Rotary, who's now excited that now they have twice as many kids to take care of. The professional learning that occurred, the Washington teachers invited over the Nebraska teachers. And I'm just talking, Get sitting here, she could tell you too, but it was just wonderful to watch that professional learning community gather. And the teachers at Washington, at the first time when we talked to them, they were actually excited because now they'll have partners. Because at Washington and Nebraska, we only have 1 teacher at each of the grade levels. It's a little hard to collaborate with yourself. But they are off and running. Didn't they have some in-service, some support this summer?
Yes.
Could you kind of share what else we did?
Well, they had several opportunities. They had several opportunities to come together as an entire staff. So prior to school ending, they had assemblies together. They visited the school, had lunch together, and did several activities so that the students knew each other and were acquainted with each other before the school year started. And then, of course, the Rotary will have their picnic for the parents on the Friday. Usually it's the Friday before school starts, so that will be this Friday. And they always fund that picnic for the families. And they have done several things over the summer. Teachers have had professional learning together. Their quality improvement team worked together also to ensure that the transition from Nebraska to Washington was a smooth transition, not only for the students, but also for the PTAs involved, the parents, and the community members that were involved in this transition.
Great, thank you.
Yes, and when we were at Rotary today, Dr. Robinson, they were talking about the upcoming, this Friday, their open house at Washington, and I think they have over 500 RSVPs so far of, you know, students and parents and grandparents, and so I know they're really looking forward to it. Rotary is, and it'll be a great way to start the school year for them.
And Deneen Neff, I didn't say her name out loud. I think she spearheaded that collaboration, and so she's the current principal at Washington, and just demonstrated how you make this work. And it was all about relationships, and so, you know, I'm glad you asked that question so we can kind of brag about, we didn't do a lot. Those professionals at Washington and Nebraska, the teachers in particular, were very concerned that their babies were going to be taken care of, and so they made sure it happened. So, great stuff.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other questions, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that brings us to the purchase of 1,261 laptop computers and 10 docking stations from Hewlett-Packard Direct of Omaha, Nebraska for $895,706.45. Additionally, preparation services will be purchased from Process of Norcross, Georgia for about $23,000. The purchase of the laptops with services is a scheduled replacement plan for teachers and students at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Pricing for this purchase is from Hewlett-Packard's Quantity Purchase Agreement with the state of Indiana. Indiana law does not require public bidding for purchases made from state QPA contracts. Funding will come from the Common School Fund, and Jack Bird, Director of Technology, is available to answer any questions. Do we have a motion second for approval?
So moved.
Thanks, Becky.
Second.
Thanks, Jordan.
Jack, I got some questions. So I don't have to do the math. Do you know the average cost of these laptops?
$650.
And what's so special about them?
Special?
Yeah, is there anything special about them?
These have the higher-end processor, and they have 4 gig of memory in them.
And what size screen do they have? If you know.
15.
15 inch?
Mhm.
I asked for personal reasons because my tenant
Oh,
wants me
okay.
to buy one.
I see.
So I'm farming you out to get a bounce back. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all those,
Can I make one other comment?
No.
That's half the price and 2 inches larger than what I'm being billed.
We need to talk.
But we also buy in bulk. So, is this a part of the lease back where we trade in anything, or is this just straight cost?
This is just straight cost.
Okay, because sometimes we get a better price because we get a discount when we lease back, but Jack can't help you with your issues. Thank you, Jack.
so unless you want to buy 1,260.
Yeah.
Jordan. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we have the grant application for Title III, Language Instruction for Limited English Proficient and Immigrant Students. It's recommended that the board approve the application for and acceptance of the Title III, Language Instruction for Limited English Proficient and Immigrant Students grant for the 2016-17 school year in the amount of $431,369.38 from the Office of English Learning and Migrant Programs of the Indiana Department of Education. This Title III grant is federal funding allocated annually by the Indiana Department of Education based on the number of limited English proficient students in the Fort Wayne Community Schools during the previous school year. Funds from this grant will allow for the continuation of a range of supplemental services for the district's English language learners program. The funds in this year's grant are specifically designated for supplemental instruction materials, professional development, and parent involvement. This non-competitive grant is written by Emily Schwartz-Kearns, ELL manager, and supports advancement intended and outlined in Fort Wayne Community School District Goal 1, achieve and maintain academic excellence, and Goal 2, engage parents and the community. So our colleague Emily Schwartz-Kearns is here if anyone has any questions. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Jordan and Steve and Becky. Any questions?
Just one. Can you remind me of how many languages we have in the district?
We have about 70 languages among our students and families.
And number of students, roughly, that this serves?
Currently, in the ELL program, we're starting the year with about 2,000 students. We're still in the process of identifying all our new students. Last year, our count was about 2,400, so we expect to be somewhere in that neighborhood once all the new students are identified.
Mm-hmm. And so how does this, I'm curious, how does this amount, the 431,000, how does that compare to the year before?
Well, I came prepared with numbers because I had a feeling there'd be questions.
And we did not practice this beforehand. We did not speak beforehand.
It is about $50,000 less than last year. Our per pupil allocation went up about $10, but it has to do with the entire pot of Title III money divided across the state. The number of limited English proficient students went down in the state over the last couple of years as we switched assessments. And the point where students exit the program has changed, so that did affect the numbers across the state. So the total numbers are lower, per pupil allocation went up, but our district did a really good job of exiting a lot of students, so our numbers are down for that reason as well.
Okay. Well, congratulations for that.
Thank
When
you.
you say exiting, what do you mean?
When they reach proficiency on the annual English language proficiency assessment.
I like that better than
So if our numbers go down a bit, it's kind of good that we're having more students who no longer need the support.
And when you say assessment, so this is the assessment they take separate from ISTEP?
Yes, it's an annual English language proficiency assessment. The WIDA Access Assessment is what all of Indiana uses now.
Okay.
If I could add something, Kathy and I are involved with the Urban Superintendents Association, working through legislative issues. And the ELL issue is an issue across urban districts. While all of us want to make sure that we are making students proficient, what ends up happening, however, though, is that between the state and the federal laws, we still have an obligation to provide services. So while it's a good thing that the amount per student went up, it's not a good thing when they cut the funds, and even those students who have exited, you still have an obligation to support. So one of the topics that we as urban districts are looking at, and Kathy's a part of that group along with me, is what do you do about that? Because it's not like they are proficient and then we no longer have the responsibility to still provide services. So this will be a topic that urban districts are going to talk about with our legislators in terms of funding. Sounds good, but the consequences aren't always that way when it comes to budget.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now Steve is going to handle the grant application for the non-English speaking program.
And this appears to be a companion piece. It's recommended to the board that we approve the application for an acceptance of the non-English speaking program grant for the coming school year in the amount of $486,800, again, from the same Office of English Language Learning and Migrant Programs, Indiana Department of Education. If I understand this correctly, this is state funding. The previous item we approved was federal funding. Non-competitive grant, again, written by Emily Schwartz-Kern, allocated annually based on the number of limited English proficient students in our district in our count from the previous school year. Funds from this grant will allow for the continuation of a range of services for the district's English language learners program. Funds in this year's grant are specifically designated for personnel, professional development, instructional materials, and translation. And Emily, if we could get you back to the microphone, probably the same questions that we asked before. Compare this to funding from the previous school year.
Right, and you're correct. This is the state funding, where Title III is federal funding based on the same student count. This grant is about $30,000 lower than last year's, based on the same reduction in number of students, but the per pupil allocation is about $25 higher than last year.
Thank you.
Emily, I have a question. My little one, Julian, had some speech difficulties, as I did when I was at Ward. I had difficulties with L's, and I had difficulties with R's. And I met with someone this morning whose daughter just graduated from a speech pathology institute, and she's going for her master's. To what extent do we tie in with these particular grants with speech pathology? Because it would seem very distinct, because I know this when I went to Paris and I lived in France, that my difficulties with my L's and my R's rolled over into difficulty speaking in French. And how do we, I may be off topic on this, but how do we integrate what we're doing in these particular grants and these particular programs with just general speech enhancement overall?
Okay. Within the ELL program, we work on speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So speaking is definitely one of the areas that our teachers try to help our students improve on. As far as pronunciation and accent difficulties, that's definitely something they would work on, but just an accent difference or difficulty pronouncing something because of a language difference wouldn't qualify as a speech disability. So those students would be served by the ELL program, but not the speech program. However, we have students that qualify for both. If they have articulation difficulties in their native language that carry over, then they certainly could be served by both.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks again, Emily.
Thank
Do we
you.
have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Becky and Jordan. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, now Becky,
Okay.
you're going to handle the Park Center case managers.
Right. It is recommended that the board approve the contract to provide case managers in our elementary programs. for students with emotional disabilities for the amount of $195,000. Related information, since the inception of our elementary emotional disabilities, our ED programs, in the 2011-2012 school year, we have been able to consistently increase the number of ED students remaining in their assigned schools. A review of the 2015-16 data shows that 97% of the students remained in their buildings, exceeding the previous school year by 8%. This contract with Park Center provides each of our ED elementary programs a case manager during the school day to support Fort Wayne Community Schools staff with students' behavioral needs. The program's funding is being supported by Medicaid and Federal Grant 611 Part B and will be overseen by Tracy Williams, Chief Academic Officer. The program supports District Goal 1, Achieve and Maintain Academic Excellence. Questions will be answered by Renee Buskirk, Special Education Manager, and Angela Newberry, Special Education Specialist. And all I say is yay.
Do we have
Get more.
do we have a motion and a second for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Jordan. Steve? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
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 And
Opposed?
that's marvelous data. That is really exceptional to go up that much of a percentage in that time. So I congratulate everybody on that.
Okay, next we have the 2017 board meeting schedule, which again is on second and fourth Mondays, except for a couple of vacation exceptions. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the schedule?
Move approval of the meeting schedule for 2017.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Ann. Any questions, comments? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are meeting 2017. Next, we have the board policy approval. It's recommended that the board approve the, wait a minute, that's it. That's not it. It's recommended that the board adopt new policies governing student bullying, acceptance of transfer students, and criminal organization activity. Changes in state law require new policies involving student bullying, acceptance of student transfers from outside the district, and prevention of criminal organization activity in our schools. These policies have been reviewed by the Board Policy Committee and shared with all board members more than one day prior to this meeting. So again, these are policies that every public school district in the state of Indiana is required to, has been required to update. And do we have a motion to adopt and second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Ann. Becky? Any questions?
I did have a
Comments?
question, and if I could, to direct those to Bill Sweet, our attorney. Can you, Bill, tell me what were some of the requirements in legislation that required us to amend or introduce new language here?
The bullying policy, for example, the legislature has several times in recent years changed the requirements with respect to student bullying. As you know, it became a hot topic for public discussion, and as a result, they decided to be against it even more than they were before. So the bullying policy added several things: bullying education of students and staff, a timeline for how quickly you have to respond to complaints, those kinds of things, just to make sure that school corporations took it seriously. The acceptance of transfer students just involved the need to make a decision whether we were going to accept them or not, and if so, under what circumstances. The legislature has played with that several times as well, and so this represents their latest thinking. The last one, which is criminal organization activity, is one originally passed as criminal gang activity, and then someone in the legislature decided they didn't like that title. So they made it criminal organizations, and they require school corporations to adopt a policy that we're against them. So that's our legislature at work, and we seek to comply and keep our policies meeting state law.
Are these models sent, I mean, are we okaying the models that were sent from the state, or did you rewrite?
The criminal organization model, it's called Maintaining Safe and Secure Schools, is a derivation of the model policy that DOE suggested. The bullying policy is also a derivation of that. The transfer one, it was pretty much left up to us to decide what we were going to permit. There's a list in the statute that says you can deny transfers, and that list is right out of the statute, the circumstances where you can deny it. But they didn't tell us what the policy had to say. But bullying and criminal organizational activity both had suggested policies.
Okay.
Ann's on the committee also, and Glenna and Mark and Bill and Laura and I sit as administrative representatives. And what our intent will be is the state changes so often that we're going to go back through the series of policies, very specifically on professional learning. I mean, back when we did the policies the first time, that wasn't the title. So we intend to get we've got a set schedule, we got to get back on it, and we'll be bringing more policies, trying to do it routinely rather than waiting. So as we get them cleaned up, we'll bring it.
Are these policies, did the state legislature require these policies to be adopted by private and parochial schools that are receiving state funding?
No.
So I guess my concern, I know we have to pass this, but I know that there could be some inference that criminal organizations only exist in what some might see as the traditional public schools, that they do not exist elsewhere. And that bothers me, that they're passing legislation that is only required to be approved and put in place by traditional public schools.
That's not unique to this set of policies. They often exempt charter schools and voucher recipients from their legal requirements.
Right.
Doesn't make it right, though.
Yeah, if you look at all three of the topics, it's not like we weren't dealing with them. And the concept, we really had lots of conversation, and maybe can add, on that title of the criminal organization. It just seems like someone who has never been in a school would have that as the topic. And so we discuss a lot about the unevenness of us having to have policies versus other parts of the educational system in the state. But I guess where we come down is on the side of we get to alter them. And so we spent quite a bit of time, and maybe you can kind of talk about how long just reading over and changing the word. So, if you would.
Right, and basically that is what we did, just kind of tweaked it to fit our needs more, to make it more understandable. I think that if you read the ones we were given and then how we've changed it, you would see that it's more appropriate for Fort Community Schools, and it's just more understandable as you read through it.
I have a question, and just be patient with me. This isn't an English teacher talking, so I got confused on one of the sentences that I'm supposed to vote on. Okay, Bill? Look on the first paragraph of the acceptance of transfer students. The second sentence, the corporation will not discriminate in accepting transfer students on the basis of their academic records, comma, scores on state accountability tests, comma, disciplinary records except as permitted by law or disability. That's not what you mean. You mean they will not be discriminated against on the basis of their disability. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that reads disciplinary records except as permitted by law or disability. It's really confusing.
Well, except that there are exceptions permitted by law for discipline issues.
I understand that.
And there are exceptions on accepting transfers of certain disabilities. So So, and that particular phrase is right out of the statute.
So you're saying that a comma after law is not needed. Then you need to say "or" in front of disciplinary records except as permitted by law or disability. Do you see my question?
I do.
So the phrase "except as" should apply only to disciplinary records. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, or because as it reads.
It's not defined here. It's
Right.
not clear. It's just not clear.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I think our board bylaws do not allow us to amend it during a meeting because there has to be notice 24 hours in advance of the final language.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna have a protest, but
Well, but
it is confusing. If you go to law, if you go to court over that, somebody's gonna be screaming about a comma.
I think as I read it, what we're saying is we won't discriminate kids because of their academic record, their scores, or their disciplinary records, except as the law permits us to do that. And as part of the law, which is why it's confusing for you, there are some reasons around disabilities that we can not accept those students.
Okay.
That's what it's supposed to say.
Okay.
Now, if it doesn't say that, then we can rewrite it and bring it back.
It just needs an "or" in front of disciplinary. You've got a list, and you need to end the list with an "or" disciplinary records except as permitted by law or disability.
Except
Because
disciplinary
in my
records.
head, I put a comma right after law and said, you can't discriminate because of disability.
I think that's correct. The grouping should be in the disjunctive.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I trust you to clean it up.
So should we pass it and make a note to the
Yes.
policy committee then to just take a look at that wording and
That's probably the best way.
bring
I
a
appreciate
possible
that.
rewording to us at a later date? Okay.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate your patience.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Any other questions, comments?
Just so I understand correctly, what we're proposing is that we pass it and have the policy committee revisit it and bring it back to us with potential amendment at a later date after revisiting the wording.
Correct.
For that
Just
section.
make it
believe
clear
so.
so there's no confusion to people like me. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Where are we? Did we have a motion? Second. Phew. Thank you, Barb. All those in favor of adoption of the new policies signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay. Well, we have no reports, information statements at tonight's meeting, so Steve, any comments?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. I only have one. It's the Olympics, remember? If you have not read this
You
book,
going to read the Olympic Creed?
Boys in the Boat. How many have read it? All right, good. You're not going to be able to read it before school starts, and maybe you'll put it on your list for next summer. But it really is one of the wonderful books I've read about leadership and about creating teams. And Learning Forward, I know, has done a lot of this work. This is another way to emphasize the wonderful thing about it. This is by Daniel James Brown. Potok, who is the builder of these gorgeous boats back in 1936, 1935, getting ready for the Olympics, was the philosopher of this group and started helping to build this group. And one of his statements was that in every boat that he did by hand, he said he left a part of his heart in every boat as he sent it on. And it just really hit me because that's what our teachers do. And as we're developing what we're doing in this school year, the administrators and the teachers work together, and they literally leave their hearts with these children as they work through the year. And the other part of it is the way this team was built, and you must see the video, you must read the book, there's a PBS thing on it, it's just really wonderful, is this team of very different people, young men, got together and built this team because of trust. And how that was done by the coach was rather phenomenal, how they did it with the people around them. But what happened, it had to do with trust, had to do with delegation of abilities, understanding who did what best. And that's another thing that Learning Forward has done. I've seen that happen here, that you all understand the strength of what you have in your classroom and in your buildings. And it just really spoke to me. So it's a wonderful book, and I advise you read it, but I'm not going to give you a test, so you're really lucking out.
Thanks, Becky. Ann? Nope.
All I know today was 3 hours of socks, underwear, T-shirt, and jeans, and 1 pair of shoes. So when you ask my soon-to-be senior, are you ready for school, the answer, I don't know if this is a community-wide thing, but the answer in my house is meh. But if you ask my soon-to-be freshman at Southside, he's getting into an argument at the kitchen stove with Big Brother, who's trying to cook after having come back to France for 2 months. And Julian is thoroughly excited. And he's telling Big Brother, Sebastian, I've been excited for the last 2 weeks. So that's the dichotomy I have in my house. I can tell you my wife is ready to get rid of both of them. So here comes August 15th.
Dr. Robinson, did you have anything to add to that?
Just to follow up, students Monday, teachers Thursday. We had 2 fabulous days last week with our quality improvement teams that write our school improvement plans. And we were out at the Parkview Mural Center, and they were wonderful hosts to us and treated us very well. But the 2 days were spent on talking about what is it we're going to do to ensure that we focus our efforts, since the state has so many things going on. What is it that we believe are the right things we should be doing, and every teacher can bond with. And right now we're starting with just the concept of literacy and the power that reading, it's ironic you brought a book tonight, the power that reading provides students. So I couldn't have asked for more. And it just reminds me of what the difference is in our district and a lot of other districts, completely down to the classroom. The teachers know, and I tell them often that the most important job in this district is that relationship between teachers and students. And so we should have videotaped a lot of it, just the interaction teachers were having around what they were going to do, not what the kids needed to do, what they were going to do. So we're ready for the year. We're off to a good start.
Great. And I think we got an announcement about the 6th grade back to school day, or the orientation day, and the freshman orientation day that are coming up. And I know I've seen athletic teams out practicing, and past some schools that had their back to school nights already planned. We talked about Washington's, but I know those, and I think we get a list of those eventually, I think. So, yeah, it's going to be here.
It's here already.
Mm-hmm.
And we have more buildings air-conditioned this year than we
Yes.
did last year at this time.
Not enough, but we're getting there thanks to the community.
Oh, yes, wonderful.
Yeah.
And of course, Charles and Kathy and Tracy and Dr. Robinson and myself were all at Rotary today, and Mr. Giaquina was there giving a speech on the voucher program. And I'll give you the real shorthand version. Myth number 1 is that the voucher program saves money. It no longer does, and that's because of myth number 2, and that's because 52% of all students who get vouchers never attended a public school. And so, those parents are exercising the choice that they have always had before the voucher program. So, the voucher program didn't create choice. It simply is paying the bill. And I think the deficit last year was like $53 million. Is that right? Then there's the myth that vouchers save students from failing schools. Well, the data from Fort Wayne, I think it was 2 years ago, we had 3 times more students leaving A-rated schools as leaving D-rated schools. So, that's not true. We've even had some recent data, I believe, of not only are we getting students back from private schools this year, but losing some. And I think the net so far is in our favor. The most interesting part, though, was that, the myth that voucher students, their academic performance is improved when they attend a private school. And there are several studies that Mr. Giacoina mentioned, and you can probably Google voucher study and find them. The two most recent ones were one of the Indiana voucher program and then one of the Indiana voucher program that both found that students basically do better in public schools. But there's a very, very extensive one from Michigan State that followed students from kindergarten to 8th grade and found that basically the gains that private school students have can really be attributed to the abilities they had when they entered private school. That they entered private school here, and by the time those public school students and private school students reached 8th grade, the public school students had closed the gap. So that was very interesting. So that's all I have. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Jordan? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Microphone is open if there's anyone who wishes to address the board.